Hi Heather. Today I would like to talk about how to differentiate while having a better team and talent. And as we know, human capital is one of the key resources in an organization. And to obtain, retain, and reward top talent, we need to know all these strategies and insights. And as we know, top talent, they don't like to work in one company or one project for a long time. They want to try new things. They want to be dynamic and stuff like that. So, and the first question is, should we hire because of values or because of technical experience? And what are the implications?
Okay, thank you. Well, obviously that's a very complicated question, but on its face, I would say the answer is a balance. But I think there is a hierarchy of order. I think that it's most important that there be values alignment between your employees and the culture both that you have in your organization and also the culture that you're trying to build in your organization. And I think that the core values need to be in alignment in order for the team to really move forward together and to achieve what it's trying to achieve. So I think that's probably the most important. On the other side, the technical skills are also important. There is a certain role you're looking to have done in hiring this person, and you really want to make sure that that person has the technical skills to fulfill on the role. And when I'm hiring into a team, I really look at three things, four things. The first is the values. That is steadfast to me, and there needs to be an alignment in the values between the employee and the organization. And then the other three things I look for are really, the first is, what's the job I'm trying to have done, and does that individual have the technical skills and the ability and the aptitude to successfully deliver on that role? The second thing I look for is, what is the role of that person on the wider team? So I'm always very interested in making sure the team is diverse in all ways, including diversity of thought, diversity of experience, diversity of background. And so what's the role that person is bringing to the team, and how are they filling in gaps that maybe the team has as a whole or are complementary to what we're looking for on the team? And then the third thing I look for with that individual is, what are they trying to get out of this assignment? And, where are they looking to go in their career? What's next for them? What are they trying to develop? And can this role on this team help them? And I find that if you have values aligned, and then those three things of a good fit on the job you're trying to get done, a good fit in terms of what that person brings to the team, and a good fit in terms of, are they getting out of this assignment in this team what they need for how they're trying to develop their career, that's kind of the home run that really tends to have a successful match, I find.
Thank you. And the next question, if we can't offer a salary that the candidate desires, what other values we can offer back, or how we can get this person engaged or be interested in the company?
Yeah, so I think it really follows on from my answer to the previous question. I find if there's a really good balance between what the organization is looking to get out of that employee or that team member, and what the team member is trying to get out of that assignment and that team. And if those things are really matched, and both sides are really aware of that, and there's clarity to those expectations, and a constant communication, so regular check-in, are you delivering on what we as a team are expecting from you, and are we as a team delivering for what you're looking to get? Then I find that's really when both sides are really energized and able to really develop and go forward very successfully.
How would you create a strategy where candidates can easily enter the job and leave? Would you support that kind of strategy, that when people can just move from one job to another and just be there on short term?
Yeah, well, I think that it depends. The answer to that really depends on the role. And as I mentioned, it depends a lot on setting those expectations up front on, that's one aspect of what you need to be able to expect from your people and what your people have to expect from you. And so one of those aspects is longevity. Is this a short-term assignment? Is it something that we think is going to be over very quickly, or we can bring someone in behind you very quickly, and there's a certain talent set we're looking for in the short term, or is this a long-term commitment? And I think both need to know up front that we're looking for someone here that's a long-term project. We expect there to be a lot of growth within the project, and we think you can get a lot of development out of that, but we really need your commitment to be here to see this through. And I think either of those can work. What's important is you're upfront about it. I've seen over the years many experiences where one side or the other was expecting a longer stay or a shorter stay than they got, and they either, in some cases, feel trapped in a role they can't get out of, which isn't helpful to either side, or in other cases, the organization feels let down that they didn't stick around. So I think really having clarity to that and having a really open dialogue is very important.
In my career, I've seen that debate about whether it's better to have an outsider with a fresh look or someone who is insider who knows everything, but at the same time, this person probably knows above and beyond or knows all the policies, restrictions, constraints. So I'm just interested in your opinion on that. Or it is, again, depends on project, depends on role.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it depends on the rest of the team. As I mentioned, that's one of the key facets of when I talked earlier about that diversity you're trying to build on a team. And I find really that's another element that you want balance in. Particularly if you're running projects where you're looking to change something, whether that's changing an operational paradigm, bringing a new innovation into the business, launching a new type of product, moving things, into a new digital or other realm. Often what really helps is to have people who do bring a fresh eye and fresh perspective and new ideas, whether it's from other industries or other experiences, with people who really understand how to get things done. And I find inside that particular organization. And I find that if you have either people who are really, really married to the existing way of doing business, that tends to be more difficult to drive innovation. Equally, if you bring people in and your team or your individuals around the problem are all complete from the outside and don't understand the organization, oftentimes they come up with really great ideas that never get implemented well. Or if they do get implemented, they end up costing twice as much and taking twice as long because they don't understand how to knit that into the organization. And so you really need to make sure that you've got both sides of that together, I think, on most projects. In an established business, obviously, if you're creating a brand new business from scratch, it's different. But anytime you're trying to drive change in an established business, you really need that balance.
So if you bring a new talent from outside of organization, how would you help this person to assimilate or to adapt to culture or corporate culture?
Yeah, well... So there's a number of different ways on that. I think the first is making sure before they come in you've got that values map that I talked about earlier really solid. I haven't in my experience ever seen any onboarding process that can make up for different cultural values at the beginning. And even if you try really hard, eventually it's just going to come to a point where, this just doesn't work. So you need to have that match up front. But then I think there's a lot of different processes you can work, and I've seen lots of them. So everything from assigning them a mentor, so a peer buddy, if you will, a peer who can help them navigate the system, be their mentor. I found that really, really successful because the new person coming in the organization gets that, guide to guide them around. And the person in the organization really benefits from being exposed to new ways of thinking. They get asked questions that they really haven't thought of for a while, and really it can drive innovation for them. And also, it's a great experience being a mentor. So that works. There's lots of great. I think more and more the research would show that. Really thinking through how you're going to go about onboarding before you get there is important. So working with the employee before they arrive on a solid onboarding plan, and there's lots of great resources available for that. There's a fabulous book called The First 90 Days that kind of leads you step by step through how you might want to build an onboarding plan, and there's many others. I think, making sure you're going in, and then regular dialogue. So much about onboarding successfully is really that communication. So making sure that the direct supervisor has regular, time they sit down. How are we doing against our onboarding plan? What have we found that surprised us? What have we found that disappointed us? Being really open to those discussions to help them as they kind of start seeing things that maybe weren't what they expected or weren't what they were hoping, or maybe are delighting them and they weren't anticipated, and really understanding that, both to make sure that employee can be successfully onboarded, but also for learning for the next one you bring in, and really how do you learn from the experience and get better and better and better at onboarding your employees.
Great insights, thank you. And another question pertains to digital transformation. And I found that there are so many new skills and qualities required that many times hiring manager or departmental manager doesn't even know what kind of candidates they have to hire, or what qualities he or she has to have. Well, as we defined, there are 3 skill sets that are critical: design, technology, and business skills. But most organizations, unfortunately, they don't have all these 3 skills together, combined together. And what would you suggest? How can we insert these missing components, and how can we make it quickly and effectively?
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously there's a lot being, talked about in terms of digital transformation. For me, my whole career has been in digital transformation, and, starting with, when I was involved in launching dial-up internet services, over 20 years ago now. So, and so I think that it's less transformational than people actually think. And I think that the use of the word transformation is in and of itself adding mystery that's really not necessary. I think, historically over time, anytime new innovations or new uses of technology come into businesses, there's certain things you need to be aware of. And as you mentioned, the 3 things you talked about specifically, do you have that right balance of skills around technology, around culture, around design, around business skills and business acumen? And I think, like any other problem in your business with your team, you have to look at, okay, this is the ideal candidate that I'm looking for, and they have all those skills. And sometimes you get, and the cultural fit, will be there. Sometimes you get really lucky and you find that perfect star candidate. Not often. More often, you get 2 or 3 you're deciding between, or more, who are each an 80% fit. And I often find what's useful is to default to which of the people where they have their gap is strongest on my team. So if that person maybe is weaker on the design side, that might not be a huge problem for me if I have others on the team who are very strong in design. If I don't, that's a huge problem for me. If their business acumen, maybe their business skills aren't quite there yet, the same thing. That's not a problem for me if I feel I can fill that gap in with their peers, or myself or whatever. But if I can't, then that's a real glaring error. So, it's not finding that perfect individual. It's really building that perfect team that counts. And even if the team's only you and that person, how do you respect each other? I always try and hire people to fill in gaps on me and where I think I can fill in their gaps. And once you get them in as part of that onboarding, be open about it. Like, don't try and hide from the fact. Like, tell that person, when we were hiring you, this was our area of concern. This is the area where we think you're weaker than maybe we might like. So let's build a development plan of how we can help you get better and better at that over time, so that gap goes away. And so and then both people, both the hiring person and that team member have an obligation to figure out what they need to do to make that development happen. And so being open about that and making sure you've documented that.
It's interesting that you mentioned about transformation. I remember that one time I attended it was a marketing research event, and I asked industry professionals whether digital marketing will replace traditional marketing. And there was a person from Google, and she said that, no, you know what, marketers should be just a person that has this holistic approach, and it shouldn't be divided digital marketing or traditional marketing. It's just marketing, and the fundamental rules are still the same. The techniques are changing, or maybe the tools are changing, but the idea is still the same. So
yeah, and I think you're evolving with your customer, and digital marketing is not digital marketing. Digital marketing is addressing the fact that consumers wish to consume information in a digital way. So you're always thinking about it in terms of, well, how are my customers evolving? What are my customers wanting to do differently? What are my innovative opportunities to surprise them with a way to deal with our organization more easily? That leads you to digital solutions. But, it's not, the end goal is not to be digital. The end goal is to communicate better with your customers.
Thank you very much.